What if a solitary choice by President Ibrahim Traore could elevate an entire generation of children from the barren wasteland of neglected education? On the 11th of December, 2025, the Sahel reached a critical crossroads that the world never anticipated. For decades, over 6 million children scattered across rural Burkina Faso had learned beneath roofs of straw, in classrooms crafted from mud walls and rusted metal sheets that crumbled with every storm. On some days, lessons halted as the wind whisked away chalk dust. On others, rain transformed the floors into slippery mud. Then President Ibrahim Traore stunned the nation with a daring proclamation: the immediate replacement of 1,000 makeshift classrooms with 1,000 solid concrete schools. Not someday, not later, but now. If you believe these children's futures deserve to be witnessed and heard, stay with this story till its very end. Before this transformation, education across the Sahel, particularly in Burkina Faso, was marked by struggles invisible to most of the world. As of early 2024, more than 1,000 villages still depended on classrooms woven from grass, cracked mud walls, and scavenged metal sheets. UNICEF's 2023 regional report revealed that 39% of children in the Sahel attended schools unable to withstand strong winds or heavy rain. In the rural north, temperatures inside these makeshift classrooms often soared beyond 40 degrees Celsius, forcing breaks when children fainted from the heat. Throughout the country, over 6,200,000 children were trapped in a fragile cycle of learning, disrupted by storms, heat waves, and the harsh truth that no child sitting on bare earth can focus. In many villages, the school year was cut short by an average of 62 days due to poor classroom conditions. Teachers gave their all, but even the most passionate educator cannot teach while the roof trembles overhead. This was why President Ibrahim Traore's announcement, made in October 2024, shocked both allies and adversaries alike. Replace every 1,000 makeshift classroom with 1,000 concrete schools within just 14 months. No phased approach, no waiting on foreign aid, a mission launched as a national emergency. The Ministry of Education's plan outlined rigorous modern standards. Each school would boast 6 concrete classrooms, a borehole water system capable of 5,000 liters, 12 solar panels providing light in the evenings, ventilated windows to withstand relentless dust storms, 30 to 40 new desks per classroom, a dedicated teacher's lounge, and UNICEF standard sanitation blocks. Construction kicked off in January 2025, employing over 11,000 local workers and 320 engineering teams. At peak pace, crews completed a school every 18 days. In their fastest month, May 2025, they delivered 46 fully finished schools. Even international experts admitted that this scale of rural education transformation typically spans 5 to 7 years. Yet Burkina Faso achieved it in just over 1 year. But what truly defined this breakthrough wasn't the concrete nor the speed, it was the flood of emotion when the children first walked into their new classrooms. The turning point came on the 1st of November, 2025, a date forever etched in the memory of villages across Burkina Faso as the day the future arrived. Overnight, the Sahel's atmosphere shifted. Before dawn, children in school, uniforms some with shoes too large, others wearing sandals patched multiple times, made their way toward buildings they had only heard whispered about. For months, they watched as crews leveled earth, mixed concrete, and installed solar panels with near impossible precision. Yet, nothing prepared them for the moment the doors swung open. For many, it was their first time stepping inside a true classroom. Instead of mud underfoot, they felt the cool solidity of concrete. Instead of dusty drafts slipping through broken walls, they saw sunlight gently filtered through glass, clean, bright, and silent. Desks were neatly lined up, each waiting for a child who had never owned anything beyond a simple notebook. When a little girl from a village near Kaya sat and touched her desk, she whispered, "Is this really mine?" Her teacher was speechless, only noting the tears streaming down as she picked up a fresh piece of chalk. Outside, hundreds of parents gathered around the new schools. Many had spent their childhoods toiling in fields, never once entering a classroom themselves. One father shared, "I walked past this land every single day for 20 years. I never dreamed a school would stand here. Now my son will read books I cannot even understand." Inside, teachers long accustomed to improvising under leaky roofs and dim lights stood before smooth blackboards, armed with markers and tools they'd only seen in manuals. Some were overcome with emotion. A senior instructor in Dori said, "I have taught in a dozen villages. This is the first time I've seen a classroom where my voice doesn't have to battle the wind. On that single day, over 220,000 children nationwide shared this awakening. And everywhere, the reaction was the same. Silence first, followed by awe, then joy spreading like wildfire. Yet beyond Burkina Faso, the world was watching, and its response would shape the next chapter of this unfolding story. Inside the country, the emotional impact was immediate as West African social media flooded with images of wide-eyed students sitting at their brand-new desks. Teachers shared videos declaring, "Today marks the true beginning of education in our village." Communities rejoiced deep into the night, dancing around freshly built schoolyards. The sentiment was more than just thankfulness. It was a vindication. For years, families in rural areas had been told they were too distant, too impoverished, too remote to be prioritized. The 1,000 School Initiative shattered that assumption. Within the country, faith in national leadership soared. President Ibrahim Traore's approval rating surged dramatically, according to a survey conducted in November 2025. Polling showed 112% nationwide and nearly a 20% plunge in approval in northern rural regions. Many citizens openly stated this was the first government action directly impacting their children's futures they had witnessed. Teachers' unions lauded the program for elevating professional honor. Local construction firms, trained and hired for this mission, experienced their largest employment surge since 2018. On the international stage, reactions were even more intense. UNICEF issued an uncommon endorsement, calling the project the most ambitious rural education upgrade in West Africa over the past decade. The African Union described it as a blueprint for sovereign development. Europe, often skeptical of Sahel reforms, expressed surprise at the unprecedented speed of construction, with a French newspaper noting Burkina Faso's progress exceeded all expectations. Meanwhile, in the United States, policy experts detected something deeper, a transformation in governance philosophy. Commentators on African news remarked the strategy embodied leadership, rooted in infrastructure, efficiency, and national pride, a blend that resonated strongly with American viewers over 50 years old. Several U.S. think tanks released early reports highlighting the bold feat of completing a 7-year endeavor in just over 14 months. One analysis concluded, the scale, speed, and symbolism of these schools signify a changing Sahel, a Sahel taking charge of its own destiny. Yet, no amount of global acclaim could match the feeling within those classrooms. Hope. Raw, unadulterated hope. And as powerful as these reactions were, they merely marked the start. What followed would redefine education and reshape the entire political and social fabric of the Sahel. When the 1,000 new schools opened, the transformation across Burkina Faso extended well beyond the classroom walls. It was more than education. It was a societal awakening. Families long resigned to hardship began to glimpse possibilities once thought unreachable. The numbers confirmed this. School absenteeism decreased by 28% in the first 3 months, marking the most significant improvement in rural Sahel education since the early 2000s. Across hundreds of villages, children who once trekked miles only to sit beneath crumbling roofs now attended classrooms sturdy enough to brave the region's violent storms. Plus, each school housed a 12-panel solar array, allowing lessons to stretch into the evening hours, something inconceivable just a year prior. Nighttime learning circles emerged for the first time. Children reviewed homework under bright lights as parents, many never having laid eyes on a textbook before, gathered quietly in the back to witness modern education firsthand. The impact rippled into family life as well. Mothers who once kept children home during rainy seasons no longer feared flooding classrooms. Fathers who had lost hope of educating their daughters now saw them entering bright rooms with new desks and spotless uniforms. Stories of ambition spread swiftly. A boy in Sino province told a visiting reporter, "I want to build roads. If they can build this school, I can build anything." A girl in Yatinga declared she would become a doctor because now the classroom feels like a hospital, clean and strong. Teachers experienced a profound boost in morale. Years of improvisation under harsh conditions gave way to restored dignity. Attrition rates fell as instructors sought transfers to remote areas, a phenomenon unheard of before 2025. One teacher summed it up. When the nation invests in education, it invests in us. Equally important, communities began owning their schools. Parents organized volunteer teams to maintain water systems, safeguard solar panels, and coordinate cleaning shifts. In several villages, Weekend literacy classes for adults sprang up spontaneously, proving these new structures were more than just places for learning. They had become hubs of hope and aspiration, reshaping local identity. For decades, villagers heard the story that the rural Sahel was too isolated, too unstable, too poor to modernize. This project shattered that narrative. Suddenly, hope was tangible, both literally and politically. The initiative ignited one of the most profound shifts in public opinion Burkina Faso has seen in recent memory. President Ibrahim Traore, already known for his decisive leadership and focus on sovereignty, found his credibility cemented not through rhetoric, but through real results. A nationwide survey in late November 2025 recorded a 12% surge in public trust across rural districts, revealing the most dramatic increase, nearly 1/5 growth in certain areas. For communities long overlooked by political power brokers, this initiative was more than mere infrastructure. It was a powerful symbol of dedication. This feeling transcended national borders. Throughout West Africa, governments quietly examined Burkina Faso's blueprint, a high-speed, low-cost infrastructure campaign, driven by local labor and funded nationally rather than relying heavily on international donors. Analysts in Mali and Niger cited the project as a model for homegrown development, a concept increasingly attractive in a region weary of external dependency. Yet the most profound political reverberation emerged in how the global media framed the project. European commentators voiced surprise, some unease, at the effectiveness of a government they had long dismissed as inexperienced. Headlines proclaimed, "Burkina Faso surpasses expectations," unveiling a new governance era in the Sahel. Western experts were forced to reconsider entrenched views, acknowledging that transformative leadership could arise from places traditionally ignored by global power hubs. The African Union further bolstered this narrative. In a December 2025 briefing, AU representatives spotlighted the Burkina Faso school endeavor as a standard for sovereign-driven development and community-focused planning. In a region grappling with instability, this recognition held profound symbolic meaning. Within the country, the project redefined political dialogue. For years, discourse was dominated by security and survival concerns. Now, the conversation pivoted to prospects. What infrastructure should come next, how to broaden teacher training, and how to prepare future generations for a rapidly modernizing Sahel. The Traore administration capitalized on this momentum, announcing a preliminary study for Phase 2, targeting an additional 500 schools for assessment in 2026. But arguably the most significant political impact was this. The people of Burkina Faso rediscovered hope. They believed in the state's ability to deliver. They embraced the possibility of national revival, and they felt their children were finally seen not merely as figures but as the foundation of a burgeoning nation. The emotional and political energy was undeniable. Yet beyond Africa, a different narrative was taking shape, one that would influence global perceptions of this educational triumph. From the moment images of the new classrooms circulated online, the United States responded with a mix of admiration, intrigue, and discreet strategic adjustment. American audiences, especially older generations who had witnessed decades of international development, noticed something extraordinary unfolding in Burkina Faso. African media outlets shared scenes of children seated at sleek desks, teachers marking pristine boards, and villages rejoicing beneath solar-powered courtyards. For many Americans, it was the kind of transformation usually associated with major international aid initiatives. Yet this time, the engine was internal leadership. Think tanks in Washington began releasing preliminary analyses underscoring the project's significance. Experts observed that the scale and pace of construction reflected a governance model focused on sovereignty and tangible outcomes. A December 2025 briefing by the Center for Strategic Development declared Burkina Faso's 1,000 school project among the most striking examples of nationally driven reform in the Sahel over the past 2 decades. The report further highlighted how President Ibrahim Traore's approach diverged from traditional aid-dependent models, raising questions about the emergence of a new development philosophy in West Africa. For American viewers over 50, the initiative resonated deeply. This generation witnessed sweeping domestic reforms from expanding public education to the growth of rural electrification. They comprehended what it meant for a nation to invest in its youth as a pathway to lasting stability. Seeing concrete schools sprout across some of the Sahel's harshest landscapes, they recognized the familiar spirit of nation-building, steadfast commitment, sacrifice, and faith in a brighter future. European newspapers adopted a more varied tone. Some lauded the project as a template for African-driven progress. Others voiced apprehension, pointing out that the rapid construction pace defied outdated stereotypes about African governance. Yet, despite differing viewpoints, consensus was unmistakable. Burkina Faso was no longer a sideline subject of global narratives. It was authoring its own story. Across Africa, reactions were notably unified. Neighboring states viewed the initiative as proof the Sahel could transcend decades of turmoil. Leaders in Mali and Niger sought technical advice, eager to emulate aspects of the program. African intellectuals celebrated the project as a pivotal milestone in reconceiving education as a strategic bulwark against poverty and extremist threats. But perhaps the most revealing response came from African diasporas in the United States. Thousands shared footage of the new schools, expressing pride and renewed connection to the continent's forward march. For them, countless people circulated clips of the newly built schools, their hearts swelling with pride and a revived sense of belonging to Africa's forward march. For them, the initiative marked a pivotal new era, where African nations made strides on their own terms, guided by leaders like Ibrahim Traore, who championed sovereignty, respect, and development, fueled by the community's own efforts. Yet, while the world lauded the remarkable achievement of 1,000 schools, few grasped that a deeper revelation was imminent, one destined to reshape global views of Burkina Faso even more dramatically. In the early days of December 2025, mere weeks following the inauguration of the last school, a startling document surfaced, one that would thrust the Sahel's educational triumph into an international spotlight far brighter than anticipated. An independent review commissioned by the African Union presented a 64-page analysis assessing the structural integrity, sustainability, and financial prudence of the 1,000 new schools. The results left experts astounded. The audit reported that 80% of the new schools surpassed the African Union's infrastructure standards, equalizing them with educational establishments across North Africa and segments of Southeast Asia. Even more remarkable, the construction expenses were 32% lower than similar rural school ventures supported by foreign donors between 2015 and 2022. The report attributed success to the smart use of local materials, optimized supply chains, and the spirited engagement of community volunteers. Geopolitical analysts quickly realized this was no mere educational project. It was a powerful exhibition of capability, discipline, and national unity under President Ibrahim Traore's stewardship. Headlines across Africa and the Middle East echoed the sentiment loud and clear. Burkina Faso had far exceeded all expectations. Yet the most breathtaking revelation was still ahead. On December 11, 2025, the symbolic anniversary of the project's inception, the government discreetly revealed a confidential briefing to select ministers and regional leaders. Within lay the blueprint for Phase 2, an even more audacious plan than the first, comprising the construction of an additional 500 schools, alongside a nationwide teacher training initiative set to prepare over 4,800 educators between 2026 and 2028. What caught many off guard wasn't just the scale, but the approach. Rather than depending on foreign contractors, Burkina Faso intended to grow its own engineering teams, local building cooperatives, and solar panel assembly workshops. Phase 2 would be nearly entirely executed by Burkina Faso itself, signaling a profound shift. The nation would no longer wait on outside validation to chart its destiny. This disclosure changed the story's course. What started as humanitarian aid had evolved into a beacon of sovereign strength, a bold affirmation that the Sahel was stepping firmly into a new epoch of self-driven progress. And with this twist, the world recognized the education miracle as not a conclusion, but a beginning. In the stillness, following the celebrations, a deeper truth settled over Burkina Faso. The country hadn't just erected 1,000 schools. It had forged a new identity. Children who once studied beneath fragile shelters now raise hands in vibrant, sturdy classrooms. Parents who once were illiterate now proudly join evening literacy circles. Teachers who once dreaded the rain now instruct confidently under solar-powered lights. And the global audience, following through countless African news reports, witnesses a nation rewriting what was once expected of it. This is the legacy President Ibrahim Traore entrusted to future generations. Not mere buildings, but boundless possibility. Not just education, but restored dignity. The 1,000 school milestone symbolizes the revival of a nation that refused to accept the confines imposed by history. As Traore famously said, "We do not seek permission to be free. We rise to claim it." If this story resonates with you, if you believe Burkina Faso's children deserve a future brighter than the deserts behind them, then spread this message. Subscribe to be part of the awakening of a new Africa, one that rises without ever bowing its head. Subscribe now to be part of Africa's rebirth, a continent ascending boldly, never once lowering its gaze.